everyone, and welcome to a revamped Breaking Even with Al Paton. I am, of course, Al Paton, and we're bringing back this show, Patch, with some brand new, fun, exciting segments for the people for the second half of the season. Plus, of course, captains, any injury news that's happened during the week since all of our other podcasts that everyone's been listening to. But we're all about listening to the people. This is SuperCoach is the people's game, and we want to give the people what they want.
Yep, BWAP is back in POG form, and it's like it's never left. But Al, will there still be mail? Are we still doing mail?
Well, there's early mail, there's late mail. There'll be some kind of mail, I'm sure. But we do want people to tell us what you like, what you want to hear on the show for the rest of the season. And, of course, we're already starting to think about planning for finals in 2027 and all these crazy things. So, let us know what you want to hear more of or maybe a little bit less of. But we'll jump into the content straight away because we've got another huge buy round of footy to go. Actually, before we get to that, I will mention that at 4 a.m. tomorrow, I believe, is the first match of the Soccer World Cup. So there is a SuperCoach WC26 game that is live. Jump in now, pick your team. I think my strategy is just copy whatever Tim Mitchell is doing.
Yep. I've got no idea. I'm just going to go just full send it with Socceroos players and just what's the worst that could happen? Just ride or die with some sporting patriotism to see how we go.
And, of course, the SuperCoach Cup is live. I think you are still alive.
I'm still alive somehow, despite the odds. We're still going.
I'm still alive. There's just over 2,000 teams left in it. I've got my eye on Frank and the Midwest Mongrels this weekend, although I'm a bit nervous because he does have a unique player called Lockie Neal who has a reasonable matchup this week, which we'll get to when we talk about captains a little bit later. But as I mentioned, I don't know if it's really late mail. It was announced in about November last year that the buys continue, and this week we have Collingwood, Carlton, Hawthorn and Fremantle not playing, so probably not the worst week I would have thought for most Supercoach teams, but it's not like I've got 22, 23 on field this week. How is your team looking?
I'm trying not to look. I do have a few more from this buy due to my Supercoach affinity for the Fremantle Dockers. So not Luke Jackson.
That's been a reasonable strategy this year, I have to say.
Well, I mean, Brayshaw's not been a great strategy. Luke Ryan. I mean, you give some, you lose some, and I've been losing more than I've been getting. But anyway, I'm sure it'll be fine. Maybe we'll see.
But we have two more teams, Richmond and the Giants, obviously, who had the bye last week, who now don't have any more buys. So feel free to pick guys from those teams. Hopefully they'll play every week from here. We also have some debutants that we already know about, which we love.
We love that.
One is at the Western Bulldogs, Luke Kennedy. Is this Matt Kennedy with glasses and a mustache on?
That's a question for Chloe Williams, I think. I couldn't recognise either of them in person, but we love rookies, and Bevo's pretty good at playing them. Credit to him. Yep, fair. He's a 119k mid in Supercoach. Luke Kennedy's been averaging 78 in the VFL, so not shooting the lights out. But you look at his tackle numbers the last 2 weeks, 16 and 13. So loves a cuddle.
We do like that in Supercoach. The timing is okay, I think, for Supercoach in the sense that he'll play, assuming he goes all right, stays in the team, play 2 games, then the Bulldogs have their bye, and then potentially, if you're looking to make a final move coming out of that round 16 bye, which we might talk about a bit later too, he could be there sitting for us on the bubble.
Imagine having trades after the round 16 bye. Couldn't be me. I'm more interested in the other debutant this week, Xavier Bamert. I'm going to go Bamert because it sounds a bit fancy. Apologies to Xavier, for Port Adelaide has come straight in after the mid-season draft. They've given him, 1 week in the Sandful, averaged 73 for North Melbourne in the VFL before being plucked in at the mid-season draft. He's coming straight into my side this weekend after a 75 in the Sandful with 12 disposals and 2 goals. They have huge raps on him down there, and they've been, the last 12 months a treasure trove of SSPs and MSP picks.
True.
And
I mean, Port has had their bye, and the most, the biggest thing going for him is 99k.
Yeah. Yes, it's fantastic.
So we'll get to some trades later, but quickly, would you pick him ahead of, say, Podadsky, who I'm looking at this week?
Yes.
That's because I really like his job security, but obviously Collingwood on the bye, not ideal.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like if you need a forward, Podadsky's fine. If you can get one of either, you'd probably go for the guy that's playing this week, but I don't think it really makes a massive difference. I think Podadsky's probably got slightly better job security, but yeah.
Yep, we'll see how he goes. Obviously, keep a close eye on him. Tonight, you'll be keeping a very close eye on him. On the weekend, now, a bit of injury news around that's come out during the week. Tom Stewart won't play this week. He's got some concussion. Jack Ross also has some concussion from a couple of weeks ago, and I think he's technically cleared the 11, 12 days, but he's still not 100% right. So Richmond say he won't play this weekend. So seen a few people potentially trading him in, and he's one I was interested in as a forward, but scratch him for this week at least, which is unfortunate. And we do have the teams for the Adelaide Bulldogs game, and the biggest news there is it's still no Isaac Rankin. I think we're talking about him maybe getting a fitness test, but they're holding him off for one more week.
Well, I think it might have been Matthew Nix coming out this week saying that if it was a final, we'd have played him, but we're not going to risk him. Off a shorter break, there's no point. Throwing away potentially more weeks of him playing just to get like a Thursday night game out of him. So Thursday night, whatever night it is.
It is Thursday night game, but he's just in that pool of probably 10 forwards that you could choose that could average 85 or could average 105. It's really just sort of pick your poison. Ideally, someone who hasn't had their bye, someone who has already had their bye is probably where you want to look. But Isaac, we have to wait a little bit longer for him. And ideally, I'd love to see what his role is when he comes back. Will they put him straight back into the midfield where he's obviously playing well, but also whenever he goes in there, he seems to do a hammy or something. So
I'm not sure. It's a probably hold off, wait and see. And then Justin McInerney as well, the big injury news for the week. Out for 8 to 10 weeks for the 12% of super coaches that have him in their forward lines. That hurts. You got to trade him. But also Errol Goulden apparently very close to a return. So what that means for Harry Kyle, we have to wait and see. It makes me far less confident on him, but I guess I'm not.
They have a couple of injuries there. McCartan as well is going to go out. Obviously, they're not playing the same position, but I think maybe it helps his job security a little bit. Now we've stolen the next segment, the People's Choice from the Phantom's Lair. It makes more sense to do it on a Thursday. I'm not sure if Dossie's going to be able to drop in the sting, or we just have to sort of. I'm not sure if you're.
I cannot remember the sting for People's Choice.
I think it just says the People's Choice in a kind of a weird voice.
People's Choice.
Yeah, that's basically it. So looking at the most traded in players this week, we'll quickly rush through them. Number 1, Hugo Hall Kahan has played only one game, which generally is a no-no. But we both brought him in, I think, on 0 games, and it was great. So,
and what a game it was.
Exactly.
What a game.
He did have a bit of a head knock at some stage, but haven't heard any more about that. So hopefully he's in the team for tonight, so that's tick for him. Definitely happy to bring him in. Def mid, perfect. 99K as we like. Number 2, Campbell Lake, another 99K who played last week for the Saints. I wouldn't mind having another look at him, but the mid forward could be handy. But you'd really want him to play the next couple at least to get you through to round 16. And then he misses
the bad bye as well. So not that small forward is a great cover, but...
so maybe a Bermuda or someone or Pedazzi could be a better option there. Finn Callahan, great. Like off the bye, cheap, love that. So any of these primos that have had their bye already, the people looking at Lockie Ash or Jordan Dawson's a little bit more expensive. Jason Horn-Francis, you sort of have to ride the lows and the highs, but he's had his bye. We know what his potential is, so I like all of those. Most of the guys on the list here, who maybe a little bit further down, but people bringing in a Cozzy Pickett this week or a Heaney, I would wait until after their bye. When it's only next week or the week after, even if Lockie Neal has an amazing matchup this week as we discussed, but you really got to be conscious of how many players you're going to have available in round 15 and especially, as you say, round 16.
Yeah, 100%. I'd be holding off on anyone who's yet to have a bye at this stage. That, as I mentioned earlier in the week, that includes Sam Durham. Despite the value is not going to disappear in 1 week. So I think he is someone we can wait for, and then the rest of them, despite that tasty Richmond matchup for the Lions, would probably steer clear of
So that's the one I was going to look at, ask you about, was Sam Durham. He's number 4 and the most traded in this week. Nearly 10,000 coaches bringing him in, obviously off a 127, I think it was last week. Looked great in the midfield for the Bombers. He had nearly 100 points at half-time. And the value is great, 365K. You can pick him as a forward, where we all need forwards. He's almost the same price as a Milan Murdoch or a Matthias Philippou.
Or a Hugh McCluggage.
It's a bit of a downgrade there potentially. But, it's a really tricky one because there was no Darcy Parish in that team. No Joe Caldwell, he's out for a couple more weeks. No Andy McGrath, I think he's nearly on the verge of coming back.
Zach Merritt was not playing in the midfield, which maybe that's just it for him in the midfield for his Essendon career. But who
getting
knows?
into too far ahead into our trade plans this week. The dilemma for me is I think, like nearly everybody this week, I would rather wait and have another look at him or wait till after his bye. But how long can you keep waiting when we're trying to upgrade our teams and when you've got someone like Matthias Philippou who's like, burning through my wallet, and I just sort of feel like I have to get rid of him.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that a little bit later in the pod.
That makes it very difficult, but I'm thinking I might bring in Durham this week and just roll the dice just because of the price. Around 15 buys, not the worst, but not ideal.
Yeah, I think it's very much team dependent as well. If you're clean sailing for that bye, then sure you can do it. Or if it's like a Milan Murdoch sharing that bye to Sam Durham, it makes it a bit easier. But I'm holding off for one more week. I just don't quite want to go there with Durham, despite him possibly being the perfect 23rd or 24th guy that you can swing around. But
I think he could be. Now, speaking of players that are getting the boot this week, new segment, keep or yeet. Now, we want a very short answer from you, Patch. These are players that are getting traded out en masse this week. Are you keeping them or yeeting them if they're in your team or if you were in this situation? Well, we'll start with Milan Murdoch.
Keep.
Yeah, I'm a keep too.
Keep.
I think it's about a 60 break even, so that's gettable. Jagga Smith.
Yeet.
Yes, go back and listen to the buy, hold, sell. Chloe has a very different perspective on this, but we know you can't.
You can't trust her with Carlton.
And not with Jagga Smith in particular.
No.
So. It's worked pretty well for us so far, but
I
think now's the time.
About to say, I can't throw any stone sitting in my glass house with a lot of broken windows in it. So
Dan Houston.
Oh, I think it's a bit yeet.
One word, yeah.
Yeet.
Yeah, easy yeet for me too. And Sam Walsh.
Keep.
Yeah.
Yeek.
I'm keeping him.
Keep. Yeah, I think keep.
We can't. We're not allowed to go into too detailed explanations, but they do have West Coast and Richmond coming up after the bye, Carlton. So maybe at least give him a couple more weeks, and if he still is no good, then we can give him.
Yeah, I think he'd be that spot. If you've got a luxury trade left to upgrade, then yes, you can.
And it's all trade count. How many trades do you have left?
Yes.
Now Al is avoiding this week, and the player I would not be bringing in, which some people are, is Max Gawn. We talked about the round 16 bye already. Yep. So, yeah, pretty much ruling a line through anybody who has that bye, especially Gawn this week, coming off a 5-day break after that King's birthday game. So he did look a little bit sore in that game, maybe a bit of a sore shoulder in the rooms afterwards, some people were talking about. And Max Heath is flying at the VFL level.
Yep.
I think Max Gawn even mentioned that, I wouldn't be surprised if Heath comes in and gives me a bit of a chop out this week. So, he wouldn't be the guy I'd be paying up for this week. Again, just wait a couple. And he's playing Essendon, which on paper all year has looked like an amazing ruck matchup. But they've just somehow, it doesn't matter who's playing in the ruck for Essendon, whether it's Blackiston or Brian or whoever, they've somehow seemed to kill our ruck primos.
Yes, let's hope that they don't break our dear beloved Max Gawn. But yeah, I'd 100% be avoiding him from a trading perspective, even without all of that on top of it, just for the buy factor. But you add the rest of that in, and you wouldn't be captaining him this week either.
No, exactly.
So, yeah.
His break even's like 130 or something, so you think he's certainly not going to go up too much if you wait a week or two. But we talked about captains, so obviously no Luke Jackson, as you mentioned this week, no Nick Dacos, no Sam Walsh, can't captain him.
No Jagga Smith for Chloe, so she's going to have to find another option.
But counting down the top 5, number 5, I've got Jack Sinclair, GWS, great matchup for halfbacks this year. He's got a 5-round average of 121, averages 120 in his past 3 v the Giants, so ticks a lot of boxes, pretty safe pick there, I think. Number 4, Zach Butters, now playing Sydney, which doesn't look like a very easy matchup on paper, but he has a really good record against them, averages 142 in his last 3. Played them twice last year, scored 130 and 164. And some of the, Max Hall scored 128 against them last week. So
Your
I think, well, I wish he was. But I think there's some points there potentially for Zach Butters. Might be a good a VC shout potentially. Now, I've hedged my bets here at number 3 with the 2 Giants halfback boys, Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash versus the Saints. The Saints have been giving up points to halfbacks for years. Yep. These two should absolutely feast on that this weekend. So Ash, his past 3 against St Kilda, 130, 105, 137.
Yep.
Whitfield, his past 3, 96, 176 and 86.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Might depend on your, we're prepared to, aim for the upside potentially with a Lockie Whitfield there in that game.
Both phenomenal buying this week as well.
Yeah, exactly. Especially I think Ash is really good value.
Yeah.
Back at halfback. I like him for the run home for sure. No buy, as we mentioned. Marcus Bontempelli always gets up for the Crows. So if you want a Thursday night VC, averages 145 in his past 3 against them. They don't really tag, but they haven't been the easiest midfield to score against this year.
No.
So we saw last week, like Max Holmes 111, Bailey Smith 106. There's sort of been a lot of scores around that number. Not many big, massive 140, 150 type ones, but if anyone can do it, it's the Bont.
Yep. Yep, back him in. And your number one option, which is boding well for your Supercoach matchup.
Yes, exactly. And he's not in a heap of teams, but if I had Lachie Neale, I would definitely be whacking at the C on him this week. Comes up against Richmond. He absolutely loves playing the Tigers. Look back at his history for the last 5-10 years. Always goes absolutely massive against them. Averages 145 in his past three. I remember being at the MCG in 2019 when Richmond was going okay, and he scored 190 against us. I think he had 51 disposals that day. So Richmond not noted for their tagging, and if we remember before the bye, a couple of weeks ago, Isaac Heaney scored 173.
Yes.
The week before that, Darcy Parish 155, and you go back through the rounds and there's scores like that. So
yeah, all over the place. Now, I can hear a certain voice screaming from Adelaide all the way over here that there's, in your top six, really, there's no Tristan Sherry against West Coast. Where are we going?
Well, I mean, this is the talking point of the week, really, isn't it? Because Cherry, this one you would have had penciled in from the start of when the fixture came out.
Oh, yeah.
We'll pencil Cherry in as a captain this week, and he scored 199 against West Coast back in round 2, I think it was.
Yep.
But what is happening with Tristan Cherry? Obviously, 43 points last week. Can you just write that off? I mean, it was a 130-point loss, very hard for any North Melbourne player to score. It was a very low stoppage game, which doesn't work in his favour. But we're seeing, Cooper Trenbath taking a heap of centre bounces. What are we doing with Tristan Cherry? If you don't have him, which he was always penciled in for me to bring him in this week, but
same.
I'm holding off. Mm-hmm. If you did have him, though, could you just take a flyer and stick the VSO on him and see what happens? I think they play earlier in the round. So
they play on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So you've got a fullback of a Butters afterwards. You've got all the Saints players and Giants players you mentioned as well on the Sunday in the last game of the round. So you do have that. But are you foregoing a Bont VC to pick Sherry? Is that how you're going to fly
I
with
nearly
it this
would,
week?
I think.
I think it depends on your position as well. As Dossie's mentioned all week, it could be a good Hail Mary.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, if you, or I think it was the Phantom saying, if you need to shoot up the ranks, then you may as well
This could be the way to do it.
Like, you commit to the bit and go with him. But your results may vary. Certainly it's not the Monty you thought it would be a few
No,
weeks
exactly.
ago.
And as you mentioned, he's not playing Matt Flynn, which is where some of those big scores have come against the Eagles in the past. But Bailey Williams, I mean, he's been in very good form lately, but he's not exactly a containing sort of ruckman. Other rucks are still scoring all right. So I wouldn't rule out a big Cherry score here, but just, from my end, I'd like him to score under his break even, which is about 200. And if he goes well, might look at bringing him in next week.
Yep.
Anyone else you like there?
Team dependent, I'm intrigued by Brody Grundy against Port Adelaide.
Yeah, could always go big.
Yeah, as you've got down here, 159, 139 in his last two when they played last season. But, if they bring in Laddams after his 57 clearances and 345 VFL Supercoach points, or if they just kind of play McLean in the ruck, and there's a lot going on there that maybe it doesn't work. But he'd be the one I'd be looking at. Maybe Sheasel, maybe Bailey Smith. Like, there's a lot of
Smith's the other one I was umming and ahhing on, just because he only scored 67 last time against the Suns, and that was in opening round. But just not sure. I don't think he was tagged or anything, but I think maybe he wasn't 100% coming into the season. He's obviously been amazing since then. Gold Coast generally, they don't tag or anything. So yeah, he could definitely go all right. I think if you've got him, you'd definitely consider him as a captain option. I mean, taggers floating around, we always worry about. I think Marcus Windhager had his first sort of tagging job of the year last weekend. Does he go to a Finn Callahan, O'Sheen Mullen, Nando in his sights, you would imagine?
Please no.
Matt Rao, he's not really a Matt Rao type, is he?
No, or a Petrarca maybe.
Well,
we have to wait and see which way Scott goes. As you mentioned, Butters. Maybe does Toby Bedford go to Naz or to Sinclair or to someone? You have to kind of...
Max Hall.
Max Hall, yeah. We'll have to wait and see.
Welcome to Coach's Edge, brought to you by Tab. We're on looking this week at that Brisbane v Richmond game, zeroing right in on Lachie Neale. Anything surrounding Lachie Neale and a lot of disposals, I think, is a good bet this weekend. So I've got a 3-leg same-game multi for the Tigers v Brisbane game. Lachie Neale, 30-plus disposals. I think you can just absolutely lock that in. Averages 38 in his last 4 against the Tigers. Mentioned that 51 disposal game if you look back in 2019. Now, Darcy Wilmot, one of the form players in the competition, I think you could look at bringing him in SuperCoach, except they have the bye next week. But his form, you can't deny, averaging 27 disposals in his last 4 games. No Zorko, no Kitty Coleman back there. So he's just racking it up. So we've got him down for 20 plus. And Sam Cumming, throwing a tiger in there. I think definitely he's a hold in Supercoach. You don't want to trade him yet. He has been back in the midfield his last couple of games, getting over 40% CBA. So 15 plus disposals for Sam. Hopefully he can get his hands on the footy, and that gives us a $3 return. And you can find that Supercoach Same Game Multi on the Tab app. What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Now, Patch, the next segment is the tweet of the week. We love the activity from Supercoaches on X, and it's really the only thing that keeps X worth plugging into, I think, at the moment. But lots of great tweets going out, of course, left, right and centre. And we've picked one this week, inviting people to send us your hot takes every week. But this week we've gone with an old friend of the Supercoach community, and that is Damo from the Footy Mailbag. Yeah,
Damo from the Footy Mailbag. They had me on a few weeks ago and I talked about draws for about 20 minutes straight. It was delightful. But Damo tweeted about Justin McInerney, we spoke about earlier, out for 8 to 10 weeks with a rather nasty hamstring injury. Damo tweeting, by hamstring awareness, the Swans mean that Justin McInerney was aware he didn't currently have a functioning one. But yeah, no further notes. Correct.
Yep. Yes. I mean, I guess at least nice of the Swans to be transparent about the injury.
Unlike some clubs, we won't go there. We won't mention.
They haven't named him this week and then pulled him out the last second. So we'll give them some credit for that. Now, moving on quickly to the segment that everyone's been waiting for, even though they didn't know it existed until right now, and that is Patch's Pickle. What's the pickle that you're wrestling with heading into round 14?
Just one pickle? I'm like pickles galore over here at Patch's Potatoes.
Just a shout out to any pickle companies out there that want to sponsor the segment.
Yep. Just get us in there.
Happy to wear the merch.
Happy to wear the merch. So pickles this week. What am I thinking about? What's been stewing around in my big old brain? And part of it is we've spoken a lot about the round 16 bye, about how terrible it is, how all these players are going to be missing from it, but also that there are players we want that are going to be on that round 16 bye, and they're not currently in our teams. Whether that's Bailey Smith, or if you don't have Bont, or you've been looking at Max Hall for a bit. I don't have Nazai Wanganeen-Miller anymore. We're
talking about holding off on Gorn if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Holding off on these players until after the bye. But how many of them can we fit in? How many spots do we leave for them? Like if you're in a cutthroat league and need the wins now, if you're still in the Supercoach Cup, if you're just wanting to surge up the rankings while people are on the bye, we're looking to trade in guys who are playing. You don't want to trade in somebody who's about to have a bye. But if you reckon someone like a Riley Sanders is a top 4 forward, do you wait another 3 weeks to trade him in? It's just such a difficult question as to how many spots you leave. Do you not trade this week? It looks like Chloe is once again preserving her trades, which is something I simply cannot physically do. I need to trade all the time at all costs. So do you hold them and then you put yourself back a week in order to make sure you're getting a guy you really want, as opposed to settling for, if you don't particularly want Finn Callaghan, you don't really
Miller
want
or someone.
Yeah, or Trig Miller, or you're picking Lockie Ash in your last defensive slot when you're like, it really should be Jack Sinclair, it should be Nazaya. That's the pickle I'm really wrestling with this week.
So what's the answer?
It's not called Patch's Answer, Al. It's called Patch's Pickle. That's the pickle. If anyone has any answers, please let me know. At this stage, I'm trying to continue to upgrade and then looking at the cash situation and just doing the maths really badly on the back of an envelope that's got coffee stains on it. But I think I'm just trying to forge ahead, and then once I get to that spot, that's when I'd be looking at the Dan Houston's out, the Sam Walsh's out, the guys that are just stinking up the joint, your Tom Stewart's out. If you've got trades left, that's when I'd be trying to jump up to a really, a really good guy off that bye. But saying that's a lot easier than actually
Yeah, I don't mind that theory. I mean, I was thinking about this too, and I think, if you've got the position where you've only got one spot left to fill in your team, fantastic. But most of us have 2 or 3 left, and we're not going to do them all this week. So if you've got, like for me, I need a couple of forwards, I need a midfielder. Maybe I just leave that midfield spot till last, and then I can grab a Bailey Smith, and it's waiting 3 weeks. But I think I would rather wait for him, as particularly if you're just singling out the 2 or 3 absolute top liners in their line. If you don't have them, if you don't have a Heaney or a Bailey Smith, I would wait for them rather than, as you say, settle for even an LDU or a Jordan Dawson this week, who I think is a great buy. Pardon me, but he's He's not that much cheaper than a Heaney or Baz, and I think those guys can outscore him over the last 7 or 8 weeks, especially if you look at Geelong's run home is phenomenal. I think Sydney's pretty good too. So,
well, then that becomes another Pickle.
In terms of, just planning out those next 3 weeks and doing it in that order. And like you say, probably the negative about that is, then am I just playing a Pat Rechko or something in the midfield until then, which is not ideal, but maybe you're using him to do your other upgrades, and that last swap potentially is a Sam Walsh up to Bailey Smith or something, if you have the trades.
But then also best 18 as well. So if you're in a really good spot, then you can probably afford to just have like a Pat Rechko or someone on field if their score is probably going to drop out anyway. But then you mention all those names, and then I look at the SuperCoach bank balance I've got of $5,400. And I've done the maths on, I can't physically I don't have the money for Heaney and for Baz and for a Luke Jackson next week as well. Like, it's going to have to be 2 of those guys and Sam Durham, or it's going to have to be 2 of those, one of those guys and then 2 500-ish K players. So that's the other pickle that you then throw, people.
How many pickles are we?
There's somebody off screen is just holding a jar of pickles and just throwing them at me. And that's just how it feels sometimes when you're trying to figure out how everything works. And maybe one of the pickles will be really nice and tasty and work, and all of the, I don't know.
I think you're right that the answer is going to involve.
I'm drowning in pickle juice, Al. I don't have answers.
If maybe if you're in Chloe's position, you can afford 23 rolled gold primos, and then maybe you've got a Milan Murdoch or a Jagga Smith or a Sam Durham, sitting on the bench as your extra. But I think most of us are going to be in the position where you're going to need someone like that as your 23rd player, either hanging on to a Murdoch or a Smith type, or bringing in a Durham. Then it allows you to go for those top end guys to round out your midfield or your defence or your ruck line.
Yeah, so you're going to have
because I think you want Luke Jackson. You don't want to be cutting corners there.
No, I don't know. No, I don't really want to be trading in, like Jordan Sweet as a last little spot. Just like, well, we can't afford Luke Jackson. We've got Luke Jackson at home, and Luke Jackson at home is scoring 90 a game instead of 145, which I'm hoping, manifesting that it happens on the run home.
So this kind of leads into what are we doing for the week? And it is really hard because I think the guy, there's a couple of guys that I want to get rid of, but there's not heaps, that I'd love this week. I'd rather maybe wait a week on all those trade targets. But I think I probably will grab Durham this week because, as you say, trying to do that rough calculation.
I tried to tell him, folks.
Play the break evens.
I tried to tell him.
Philippou might lose 20K, Durham might gain 20K, and that 40K could be absolutely crucial. It could definitely blow up. Essendon, if you looked at Essendon's top 4 midfielders 3 weeks ago, it was probably 4 different guys to what it was last week. Now you've got Setterfield and Sardis is back in there, and Durham. So who knows what it'll be in another 3 weeks. But
could be Jackson Artemis, just cloned 3 times.
Well, he might come and save us.
Oh, please, Jackson, come and save us. But, yeah.
And what are you doing this week, Patch?
I'm Finn Callahan in.
Yeah,
he's
I like
under 500K. I can't turn down that value. He's simply too good to ignore, especially as I mentioned, I'm real poor. I just don't have the cash to.
Yeah, I talked about settling for someone rather than paying up for the top end guys. But if the price is that good, I think that offsets the the settling question. That maybe he averages 10 points per game less than a Heaney or a Baz. But when you're getting him for over 100,000,
I'm getting rid of Angus Anderson and Artie Jones to bring him in, and that's just I keep Rechko, I keep Milan, I keep a bunch of other guys. So. We'll do that. That is the plan this week.
Yeah, I like that. Let us know what you're doing with your trades. Let us know what you think of the shows, which segments you like, and others that you might think could be good as well. But we'll be listening to the people. We'll be watching the footy very close this weekend and the World Cup when it starts. I think the Socceroos first game clashes with the massive Richmond-Brisbane game, so they'll have multiple screens happening on Sunday.
Screens all over the place. If you want to sponsor the show, and you don't even need to be a pickle company, just be a guy standing with a jar of pickles, throwing pickles at me as I do Patch's Pickle, get in touch. Otherwise, we'll see you. Happy super coaching. We'll see you next time.
Exactly.